What is the issue that we're all focused? What is the issue that you've been focused on? What is the problem? What's the challenge we're trying to solve? What are you doing for the last 10 years that is the issue? And what's going to happen if there's no change in behavior to this issue over the next 10, 15 years?
I can start from my experience. Of course, I really always wanted to know why people are getting sicker and why the earth is getting sicker at the same time. It's kind of coincidence. So in our work here at Hippocrates, of course, every guest that comes and goes through our program is another kind of research and showing that humanity can heal. They can actually have an amazing life if they choose so. So, the last, I would say, for me, more than 45 years, I've been working with this. And people definitely, I would say the last 15 years, people are sicker than ever I can remember. They have gone down in the ages. And this is really, this is heartbreaking because now the people that come here are much younger with the same problem that people had when they were 70, 80 years old. So we are destroying, I did lecture today about the microbiome and how kids today actually don't have as good microbiome as my generation had. And where is that heading? Where is everything heading? Where is the quality of our food from the soil? And where are we heading? So that has definitely been my interest. And if we don't change, like the group I talked with today, they're stuck in a lot of traditions, and they think they're going to lose something if they go plant-based. And instead of, I try to show them the whole big picture. We are in this together, and we need to support each other. And we can do it with our wallet. For sure, we can do it with our wallet by not shopping the stuff that's junk and keep that part of food in our stores. We don't need it. We can get rid of it if we don't buy it. So I think we make choices in how we eat and choices how we live, choices about our environment too, the house that we make. If we build a house, that we make it green. We don't use products that is going to hurt nature in any way. So that's been our thing and my thing to find out, why are people so sick? And why is the nature going downhill?
Okay, I guess no one's speaking, so I'll jump in. We're all very shy at this hour. So I would like to, jump off and kind of also iterate what Anna was saying. So I've been a practicing internist, rheumatologist, and now an environmental health specialist, as well as integrative medicine doctor for almost 20 years now. And I've had the opportunity to watch people over time and manage autoimmune disease, manage chronic illness over a 20-year period. And then following the epidemiology and the science, I've seen much of what you're describing, Anna, in terms of increase in autoimmune disease. We now have 10% of the US population has one type of autoimmune disease, be it, gastrointestinal, rheumatologic, neurologic. 6 out of 10 Americans have at least one chronic illness, often predisposing them to higher rates of inflammation, and inflammatory disease, and obviously leading to a worsened response to an infection such as COVID, which we will likely have more of these events in the future, bringing it back to climate change. So my concern and my frustration has really come from, managing more and more sick patients at younger ages with illnesses that were typically reserved for older generations, such as thyroid conditions, autoimmune thyroid disease, and really trying to figure out how environment and how our, specifically chemicals is what I do a lot of, but also radiation, as Theodora does, how all of these environmental factors, including stress and poor sleep and too much lack of exercise, and unprocessed or ultra processed foods, I should say, and particularly drinking water, and how all of these together really are shaping the future of human health. And it's not in a trajectory that's positive. It's really in a trajectory that's looking more negative, unless people really start to understand the very basics of human health and anthropology. So my goal really is to get environmental health information into the public through the Smart Human, which is my educational platform. I sell nothing, I endorse nothing. So the Smart Human, but I'm working to get this into high schools nationally. I believe that the younger we get health and prevention information into high schools, where they have the opportunity to proactively manage what they put in, on and around their bodies, potentially for future generations as well. I think that's really where I have found the most interest from my work, and the most ability to embrace this type of information. So, as much as I teach everyone and anyone, college and patients and the community on my platform, my real love is to teach younger people to really embrace this, and it's been quite positive. So I just want to leave it on that note, that I'm hopeful that this kind of work will translate into less disease, both chronic and acute illness, as we move forward.
I'll go next. I'm Stephanie Seneff. I'm at MIT, and I basically got interested in autism back in 2008, wanted to understand what was causing the alarming rise in autism over time. And I thought I could just systematically look for toxic chemicals in the environment whose exposure was going up for the autistic kids over time, to try to find which chemicals might be in combination causing the autism epidemic. I searched for 5 years and I was very frustrated. I understood a lot about autism, about all the comorbidities, but I understood that I hadn't found the answer. And I just happened to hear a lecture by Professor Don Huber, 2-hour presentation on glyphosate. At the time, I didn't know what that chemical was. I'm embarrassed to admit. I learned that it was Roundup, and I knew what Roundup was, but Roundup is a huge factor, I think, in the chronic, not just autism. I've later found out that all these other diseases are going up dramatically in our population, exactly in step with the rise in glyphosate usage on core crops. And I think it's a hidden toxin because we think it's safe. And so people use it on their yards with their kids playing around. They'll be spraying the dandelions. They don't realize that this chemical is very toxic. We've been deceived by the company that manufactured it. We've been deceived by the government. The government says that it's safe. They don't even have to test to see how much is in the food, but it's all over the food supply. And so this is a very, very dangerous chemical, because it turns out that it's insidiously, cumulatively toxic in an extremely unusual way, a unique mechanism of toxicity that no other chemical possesses. And this is the topic of my new book, Toxic Legacy. I believe that we can explain. People say correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation. We have stunning correlations between the rise in autoimmune disease and neurological diseases, various cancers, and of course, all kinds of gut problems, liver disease, kidney disease. All these things are going up dramatically, exactly in step with the rise in glyphosate usage on core crops. So I've become obsessed with this chemical, and it's been my life for the past 10 years, I guess. And I believe it's the answer. I mean, it's not the whole story, of course, because we have so many other chemicals that we are exposed to, but this one stands out because it's by far the most used herbicide on the planet, and it's considered to be very, very safe. And that's a very, very dangerous combination. So that will be my topic tonight. And I think when you look at food and you say this food is not healthy, that food is healthy, you need to look at the level of glyphosate in the food to decide whether it's healthy or not. That needs to be a factor, and people are ignoring that factor. So, I mean, the solution is easy. Go back, I mean, in theory, get rid of the toxic chemicals, go back to organic agriculture. And I'm really, really happy that we have the certified organic label, because that's what saved me. I'm able to just purchase certified organic food, and I encourage everybody to do that. Very simple step you can take personally to help keep your personal health and your family's health in check, to keep your family healthy. And of course, we need to put pressure on the farmers. We need to put pressure on the government to stop funding the toxic chemical-based agriculture with the large, huge farms. We need to go back to small family farms, and we need to go back to certified organic. So that's my top level message.
Well, my name is Theodora Scarato, and I'm Executive Director of Environmental Health Trust. And I got involved in this about a decade ago as a social worker. And we were using cell phones for, it was free long distance. That's how I talked to my grandparents. And I had absolutely no idea that it hadn't been pre-market tested. And that sort of set me on to the trajectory of working on the issue of technology. What is healthy technology? How can we be more responsible with our technology? Because what I found out was that, our cell phones, wireless, emit a type of radiation which has thousands of studies showing harm. In terms of climate, however, let me add this, at any point in the life cycle of that device, there are human rights abuses, impacts physically to people who interact with it from the manufacturer, and climate impacts from the resources that are spent on the material that make up the phone or the device, and then all the way to the end user, to our children who are addicted, our adults who are addicted to this technology, and we're running in hard with it with 5G. So then the e-waste at every point of the life cycle of a device, the recycling that's happening in communities or families who are taking apart our phones and our laptops and being poisoned by the environmental and the heavy metals that are involved, or maybe they're burning charging wires. There are communities, they get all the wires and they burn them to get the copper and to get the metal, and they're inhaling those fumes. And yet we are insatiable as a society for technology. We're using technology right now in a very productive way in learning, but between the wireless diapers and 5G, which will bring over 500 billion new wireless devices and over 70 million new cell towers for 5G, I think we're looking at disaster, an environmental nightmare if we don't take action on making our technology healthy. So that's what I'm working on, is raising awareness on this issue and putting forward solutions, because there are solutions so that we can move forward in a more responsible manner.
Well, I'll go next. My name is Hope Bohanec, and I just want to start by saying I'm just honored to be on a panel with such amazing women that have done so much research and so much good for all of us. So I'm honored to be here. And I also want to thank Stephen for having me. And that's because I come from a very different angle. I am actually not a health expert. I am not focused on human health. My focus is the animals and the environment, particularly farmed animals, and the environmental impact of animal agriculture. And those are my specialties. That's what I've been working on and researching for 30 years. I've been vegan for 30 years. And there's so much that has changed over those 30 years, and some things are very exciting. We've had a lot of wonderful advancements, but one thing that has happened that is something that I focus my research on is this shift in the market as a response to the good work that animal advocates have done of exposing just the horrors and the suffering that the animals endure in animal agriculture, all that they suffer. The market is now responding to try to make people feel more comfortable with these products, with humane labeling and sustainable labeling as far as the environment goes as well. So we're seeing all kinds of labels like cage-free and free-range and organic to make us feel better about what's happening. But what's happening is we're having undercover investigators going into these farms, into these slaughterhouses, and finding again and again and again so much suffering, body mutilations to these animals, separation of families, slaughter at such a young age, psychological distress, just so much suffering. And so I'm here today really to be a voice for those animals. They have their own voices. They're crying out in pain and distress every day. So they do have their own voices, but we don't listen and we don't speak their language. So I'm here to speak for them, and as well to really speak for the planet, because, and this is one of the other hopeful parts, is that now the environmental impact of animal agriculture is finally starting to come into the mainstream, into journalism and environmentalism. We are talking more about it, which is great. And I am grateful for that. And I'll see something in Time Magazine or National Geographic that we're talking about the impact of animal agriculture. And, I'm just so grateful. However, the industry once again is responding, and we're seeing labels like free range and sustainable and grass-fed and all these labels that are just unfortunately not holding water scientifically. It is animal agriculture inherently that is so impactful, no matter how it's done, very impactful on the planet. So I'm here today to speak for the animals, for the planet, and I'm just grateful to be on this panel. And I think the second part of the question is, what would happen if we don't make changes? And I'll just say quickly that what is the trajectory that we're on is that billions of animals are suffering horribly, and that will continue. And climate change, climate disruption, a myriad of environmental impacts are spiraling out of control. And a lot of it is due, so much of it is due to animal agriculture that could so easily be changed. A global shift to a plant-based diet, we wouldn't need, government involvement and lots of money and infrastructure change. It just takes making different choices at the grocery store. So I'm grateful to be here, and thank you.
I can go next. I'm really honored to be part of this panel, and I know that we all have differences of opinions, but I think there are many things that we all share very much in common, like what you were just talking about, Hope. I have been a vegan for about 32 years, and when I started on this journey, I can tell you that it was not cool to be a vegan dietitian, and the reason that I do what I do is I'm so determined to help people understand the consequences of their food choices for themselves, but mainly beyond themselves. That I want people to be able to see the big picture. I want them to understand what it is to be as ethical a person as you can be. I want them to understand that when they purchase food, they are impacting billions of animals, and they are impacting billions of people, and they are setting in stone what's going to happen to this planet in fairly short order. I just, with everything I have, want people to recognize that we have to be more conscious in our choices. We have to recognize that we are responsible for so much pain, suffering, and death that is not only unnecessary, it's unjustifiable. And I do what I do largely because I care about animals, and I care about this planet. I care about my grandchildren. And, we are destroying the very fragile life support systems of this planet. And it's got to stop. I mean, I remember, Albert Schweitzer saying, and, the Nobel Prize winner from, I think it was 1952 or something like that, that the time will come when people recognize that, what true ethics really is, and that
we can't be doing what we're doing. And I think he would be absolutely shocked that in 2021, we're still where we are. But the one thing that I think makes me feel hopeful is that this message is getting out. I can tell you, it is not the same to be a plant-based dietitian in 2021 as it was in the 1980s. And that makes me hopeful. And to see the number of physicians who are on board, who are really wanting to help their patients get well. And I mean, I do a lot in terms of lifestyle medicine and, you know, doing research with diabetes and helping people to transform their lives. And for me, that's a really important part of what I do. But my ulterior motive is the animals and the planet. And I think human health is a wonderful byproduct of that. We will improve it tremendously. So that's my story.
I wouldn't mind following. I wanted to say that I'm so grateful to be here and honored to be with all of you women here, and thank you for all of your work. Brenda, you've made vegan dietitians a cool thing. It definitely is now. And I spent the beginning of my career trying to make nutrition simple and make it so people were not afraid, like talking about, you know, like what we're all taught is this deficiency paradigm, and people are so concerned about getting enough and more and more and enough, and more protein, more this, more that, more this, enough, this vitamin, that vitamin. And I spent my first 10 years or so trying to make sure everyone knew, yes, you can get this from plants. Yes, you can get it on the plant-based diet. And I went around the world and wrote books and did TV. It was all about where you get your fill in the blank nutrient. But I've since kind of changed, well, not changed my tune, but I've kind of gotten to the place where, you know what? I think one of the reasons a whole food plant-based diet is so efficacious at reducing risk of chronic disease, at reversing certain diseases, at so many wonderful extraordinary things, is because of what it's naturally limited in. So now I'm kind of touting the actual benefits of it not being, you know, high in protein, all that stuff, whatever it is. Like, I'm trying to get rid of the language of macro confusion and trying to get rid of talking about nutrients in these ways that are so confusing, because everyone is so confused. And the long-term problem about everyone being confused is that people end up being hopeless, apathetic, and feeling disempowered. And so what I'm focusing on now in my career and my work and my messaging to everyone is to give people back their voice, that they get to choose what's on their fork. No one gets to tell them what to eat. No one gets to tell them, oh, you're on a plant-based diet, that's weird. Like, I want people to feel like this is their body, their choice, and everyone can do, you know, better, and they could all have control over what they do with their health. There's a lot of control. We have a lot more control than we think we do. And I try to empower people to know that they're not broken, that they really do have a lot of power with what they put on their fork.
I think by default, I might be next. And likewise, as everybody has said, I'm happy to be here. And I think Steve has done an extraordinary thing to actually bring people together who might have some differences of opinion, and everybody to get together knowing we might have some differences and playing nice in the sandbox, because there's not enough of that going on right now. We need more scientific discourse. And it's come out in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you're aware. I'll just start with why people don't know about this. One of the problems we have. 2 court cases. There's actual testimony that the government has a direct line to social media to censor people. I don't know if you guys knew that. Any message that the government doesn't like, including messages about health, they just call Twitter or Facebook and say, take that post down or deplatform that person. And I think that's a really frightening thing today. And it's indicative of the lack of communication we're allowed to have, because it's only in fussing and arguing with each other that we're going to get better, you know? So I've spent the last 26 years of my life helping people to understand what real informed decision-making is all about. And it's not finding somebody else to listen to, and it's not joining a particular tribe, it's learning enough about this to make decisions. In other words, if people bought health and diet and supplements and drugs and tests and procedures the way that they bought blenders and washing machines and retirement accounts and houses and cars, my gosh, it would be amazing the better decisions they'd make. They would do research, they would check things out. And that's what we've been teaching people to do. And many times our clients know a lot more about relative versus absolute reporting and cause and effect relationships and mechanisms of action than some of their health professionals, and they're able to make much better decisions. So the importance of informed decision making as a practice specialty, which is what we do, is only necessary because people are not required to give risks and benefits in medical settings. In other words, one of my employees just bought a house and spent 2 hours with full disclosure. Have you ever been through this process? Document after document after document, you have to read it, you have to sign it. This is so you know what you're getting into when you sign a mortgage. But you know something, people sign up for $300,000 worth of treatment, and here's the way it goes. The doctor says, you need this, and the patient says, okay, next Thursday's good. And then we just proceed. And I think there's something wrong with that. So that's what I've been spending my life on. I've written a couple of books about it. And what I'm working on today is, I think, the biggest episode of not disclosing truth about things we're living through right now. And we're the people who are suing everybody. I'll just put it out there. We can talk about it or not talk about it, but we just filed another lawsuit today, and we're filing 4 more by Monday, challenging all this that's going on, because we're not being told the truth about it. And it's appalling. You know, whatever's going on, we deserve to know the truth about it. And we have some very incredible documents that are pretty frightening. So I guess what's happened is, for 26 years, I've been training for the Grand Prix of Informed Medical Decision Making, which is a worldwide event in which I think a lot of misrepresentations are being made, and in which is affecting everybody, so 7 billion people. And I think we need to get to the bottom of it. And so we can have some differences of opinion about what's going on, but what I think is not acceptable is the government calling Twitter or Facebook or whatever and saying, we're not even going to have any discussion. And if a person brings up an alternative point of view, we're shutting it off. So some people in this group might have a point of view that the government likes. And I don't think that that should be the litmus test for who speaks, who doesn't speak, whose platform, not do platform, whatever. So anyway, what happens if nothing changes is we're going to be lied to. We're going to be lied to for the rest of our lives, and that's unacceptable to me. And I think that if you can go to jail for misrepresenting a mortgage document, if you do it enough times, you should go to jail for not giving full disclosure about each and every medical treatment that a person is subjected to. That's not that is not a wild idea in my mind. It's not a wild idea at all. And for 26 years, what I've heard in my office is this line: if I knew then what I know now, I never would have, and then you can fill in the blank. Okay, I never would have taken that drug. I never would have had that procedure. Nobody told me that a side effect of this, you guys have heard this from friends and right? Okay. Well, I think people should know now, before. I think people should know before what they're getting into. And before I leave this planet, if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen. So that's what I'm working on now. And I just have a bigger platform to do it today because of the crisis that we're in.